One family is dealing with unimaginable grief, losing 3 loved ones in Asheville, North Carolina, when they were swept away in floodwaters. 2 members of this family, one of which is a survivor of this devastating event, they're coming out to share their story 4 days later.
Megan Dyer and her sister Heather Kephart lost their parents, and Megan lost her 7-year-old son, Micah. Megan agreed to do the interview with us this morning in Micah's honor. Megan and her sister Heather, they join us live here on Weather Command, and we do appreciate you both for being here with us. Let us start by saying we are so sorry for your loss. Megan, you witnessed this happen, and when we experience grief, so often we are asked, how are you holding up? But I feel like I know the answer to that already. So let me ask you this then. How is your grief today?
My grief today is unfathomable. I'm sorrowful. I feel broken. But what is the main thing that I take away from grief is the uplifting of all the prayers that I have received. And I think that all the chain of prayers that I have felt are the things that held me up, the things that are holding me together right now. Because if it was up to my humanly flesh, I wouldn't be able to do it. Family, togetherness, many people reaching out, praying, sending their support. That's the pieces that I can't have on my own that they're putting together for me.
And Heather, by your side, Megan, we also know your other sister, Jessica. Initially, when the stories started coming out of Western North Carolina, your sister Jessica was posting updates on Facebook before, even after the rescue and those subsequent updates. There is this picture I believe you took on the roof, and only if you feel comfortable sharing what was going through your mind, because you, your parents, and your son, I believe those were your shoes, had to evacuate to the roof.
Yes, we did. It was our only hope at that point. Everything else was covered in water. We were on the roof, and I considered at that moment that we were at our safe point. So I took a picture because at that point I still had service and I wanted to keep them in the loop. I thought we were okay still until the house broke apart and until everything started to collapse. Devastation. I was terrified, but in that moment, all I thought about was being a mom and keeping my son safe and reassuring him that this is how superheroes are made. We survive and we keep going. And I wanted to keep that alive in that moment, so I never let the faith falter.
I want to ask you too, Heather, as we give Megan a moment as well. You are Megan's sister, so your parents were also on that roof, as well as your nephew. I am reading that you do not live in Asheville, so what was the communication? Did you know what was happening in real time as your family was waiting for that necessary life-saving support?
We were getting texts from Megan, and like Megan, we were hopeful. I mean, we never in a million years would imagine that this would have happened. And then things went dark and we didn't have any communication. And our sister, Jessica, went into action mode and started calling on the only hope that we have, prayer, which is prayer. And the network came through like we have never seen. It's been such a blessing to our family. All the people, all of the responders, all around the world came and they prayed for us and our family.
And I have to say, in the water, because I was stuck there for a very long time in the water, and I was, held down by roots and trees. And in that moment, in the midst of the chaos, all I heard was God telling me to be still and to stop fighting the water. That was him, but that was prayers. That was prayers that told me to be still and to let the water carry me to where I needed to be rescued.
And you were eventually rescued, and sharing the story just 4 days later, Megan, your son Micah, 7 years old, from what I've been told, you're wearing one of his T-shirts. You called him a superhero.
Yes, he wanted to be Deadpool for Halloween, and in his honor, I wore it today for him.
Micah, man.
Tell us about Micah and the legacy that he's going to leave on this earth.
This moment.
You know, I'm so proud of my son because in his last moments, he wasn't screaming for me. He was screaming, Jesus, Jesus, save me. Jesus, I hear you. Jesus, I'm calling upon you. And his wildest dreams and everything that he wanted to be was a superhero. And that was his goal in life. And instead, he's my hero because he reached for something past flesh, past human, past anything that even grown adults, I think, would reach for. My son called out to the one God Almighty. And I think at that moment he was rescued and he became my hero. And I think all of them carried me through that moment. I think that his biggest dreams, he was the smartest, bravest, hopeful, great friend, great son. I couldn't have asked for a better son. And he was so happy up until the very end when he was screaming for Jesus. And in that moment, I think he found joy.
You know, the innocence of children is actually quite spectacular. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it is. Marissa being a mother too, Megan and Heather, I do, amidst the tragedy, your parents as well, Jessica included. How will they be remembered? Heather, if you don't mind sharing about your parents.
Our parents, like everybody, were not perfect. But since the time that we could talk in our little Southern accents, they taught us Bible verses. And we had my dad we had a big piece of cardboard, and for every Bible verse we memorized, he gave us a star, and they're the old foily stars that I don't even know if they make them now, but we got one for every verse. And those verses to this day are in our hearts and in our minds. And I think they wouldn't want to do anything else in this moment but to give honor and glory to the Lord Jesus Christ.
And one verse in particular, Micah 6:8. He has showed thee, O man, what is good, but what does the Lord require of thee but to do justly, love humbly, and to walk
humbly with
with
thy
thy
God.
God.
We're a
Okay.
little rusty.
I think I know why Micah got his name now. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did, in honor of my father and in honor of that verse.
You two are incredible. You know, and I apologize. It's so emotional. I think anybody watching, it's hard not to get choked up. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Whew, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Will you tell them why I'm sorry. I have a
Yeah.
7-year-old. I have a 7-year-old at home. And so I do want to ask you, oh my gosh, I've never done this on air before, but I think people watching need to know that when we talk about over 120 lives that have been lost, these are brothers and sisters and sons and mothers and fathers.
Yep.
Prayer and faith is getting you through this, and it is such an important thing to lean on in this time. What is it you want people watching to know and to understand as we continue to bring coverage out of Asheville, out of North Carolina, out of these communities that have been so deeply and forever impacted?
I want them to remember that there is joy beyond the pain, that while we are wrapped in sorrow and while we are wrapped in grief and overwhelming regret for all the things that we could have done that we didn't, that they are happy and they are joyful and they are all around us looking down. And my son couldn't be more proud at me for hanging on. My parents were probably lifting me up when I was in between the two things that were holding me down. They are rejoicing at the fact that I now can tell them what God did for me, because it was God. He said, be still, I am in control, and you will pass on. This is a backfire for the devil because he tried to take me out. And here I am sharing the word that my 7-year-old is a hero and my parents live on in God's glory. Mighty, mighty Micah man.
I'm struck by your spirit. I mean, and having the support of your sisters. I know when it comes to
Couldn't
this
do it without
event,
them.
I would imagine you being in the water. I know it's hard to gauge time. Was it a few hours until you were rescued, and how that
I was
rescue
in the
took
water.
place?
I was in the water for 5 hours. I was in the water for a very long time down the river. I got caught in some trees and things were hitting me. I got dragged under a few times. And that's when I remember being in a tree. And I remember thinking, well, like a voice told me I cannot stay here. I have to let go, because they couldn't find me there. And I had to trust that voice to let go and to hope something else was waiting for me. And when I did let go, I heard the voice say, be still, don't fight the water. And then I ended up in between the two carriers that stuck with me the whole time. And I waited for about 2 hours until God blessed me with a man that saw me and the rescue team that provided for me. And I can't thank them enough.
You have a very long road ahead of you, and the grief, I know, is going to come in waves. For anybody that's experienced grief that is watching knows, I always say it moves like the ocean. The ebbs and flows, and some days are going to be harder than others, and some moments will be easier. But I think remembering those moments of your son and of your parents are what ultimately, those good memories, right, of laughter and joy, are what see you through, in addition to your faith. And speaking with us and sharing your story, both you and Megan and Heather, we so appreciate it. You have all of our prayers, our utmost condolences, and you know, as you navigate it, we hope you can carry with that some of our thoughts and love.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. And we'd be remiss. There is a GoFundMe for Micah, for the family of Megan, Heather, and Jessica. Tragic. But that's the reality that so many have now had to face, the tough reality in this disaster. Jessica on Facebook posted that Micah's body was recovered about a quarter of a mile away from Megan's rescue.